There is a truth that many people only understand after years of unnecessary struggle. No one is insufficient by themselves. What exists, more often than we realize, are people who are simply unable to recognize the value standing right in front of them. And that distinction changes everything. Because when someone does not know how to see you, it is not a reflection of your lack. It is a reflection of their limitation, their emotional depth, their awareness, their capacity to understand something beyond what is immediately obvious. But in everyday life, this truth is often missed. Instead of recognizing mismatched perception, people internalize rejection. Instead of understanding the difference in awareness, they assume a deficiency in themselves. And that is where many unnecessary wounds begin. One of the most common mistakes people make is trying to fit into a measure that was never right for them. They adjust themselves, quietly at first, then gradually more. They soften their opinions. They hide parts of their personality. They over-explain their intentions. They reduce their needs. They try to become easier to understand, easier to accept, easier to keep. All for the sake of fitting into a space that was never designed to hold their full self. But here's the hidden cost of that effort. In trying to become acceptable, they begin to disappear from themselves. And what starts as adaptation slowly becomes self-reduction. Not because they are not enough, but because they are trying to be enough for someone who was never able to recognize them in the first place. Respect does not work like something you can negotiate into existence. It is not something you can convince someone to give you. Respect is recognized. It is either present or it is absent. And when it is absent, no amount of effort will transform it into something real. You can give more of yourself. You can explain better. You can be more patient. You can tolerate more. You can try harder in every possible way. But if there is no awareness on the other side, everything you give becomes depleted. No connection, not growth, just exhaustion. Because you're investing energy into something that cannot respond in the way you hope. Some relationships do not fail because there is no love involved. They fail because there is no emotional capacity to hold what love requires. Some people care, but they don't know how to sustain care. They don't know how to protect it. They don't know how to nurture it in a way that allows it to grow. And that creates a different kind of pain. Because it's not the absence of feeling, it's the absence of ability. And that also leaves a mark. Because connection is not only about what is felt, it is also about what can be carried. Not every heart has the same capacity to hold depth. And recognizing that is not judgment, it is clarity. One of the most damaging patterns people fall into is accepting less than they deserve while still calling it love, patience, or understanding. But deep down, there is always a part of you that knows when something feels off. A quiet awareness, a small internal signal, a sense of imbalance that doesn't fully disappear. And yet many people ignore it, not because they are unaware, but acknowledging it would require change. And change often comes with discomfort. So instead, they stay, they justify, they adapt, they silence themselves internally to maintain external stability. But that silence is not peace. It is a disconnection from the self. It is the gradual ignoring of your own emotional clarity. And over time, that becomes costly. Because when you repeatedly ignore what you know internally, you begin to lose trust in yourself. Character is not only built through what you endure, It is built through what you choose to stop enduring. There comes a point where growth requires distance, not always physical distance, but emotional clarity. The decision to step away from places where you are not valued for who you are. And that decision is rarely easy, because familiarity creates attachment, because effort creates hope, because time creates investment. But none of those things change the reality of whether you are truly respected or not. And staying in a place where you are not respected does not become loyalty, it becomes a habit, a pattern of remaining in discomfort because leaving feels uncertain. But endurance without value is not strength, it is stagnation. Real strength appears when you are willing to leave what continuously asks you to shrink, even when it hurts, even when it is familiar, even when it is difficult. Because in the long run, the cost of staying in the wrong place is always higher than the pain of leaving it. And this leads to a deeper understanding. Life is not about being enough for everyone. That is not the goal. That is not even possible. The goal is not universal acceptance. The goal is alignment. Being in places where your presence does not need constant justification, where your value does not need to be explained repeatedly, where your existence is not a negotiation. Because in the right environment, you do not have to constantly prove anything. You do not have to reduce yourself. You do not have to translate your worth into something others can finally understand. You simply are, and that is enough. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson many people spend years learning. You were never meant to become smaller to be understood. You were meant to be seen in the right place. And when that happens, everything unnecessary begins to fall away. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally stopped trying to fit where you never truly belonged. If you love this video, make sure to like this and subscribe to this channel for more content like this.